Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that the Planning Commission recommends the adoption of a priority preservation area with the boundaries identified as priority preservation areas 1, 2, and 3. In order to track our success in reaching our preservation goals, the county should target our annual rate of preservation, monitor our rate of preservation, and take action as needed to better stabilize the land base to achieve these goals. And preservation areas 1, 2, and 3 are in the ERM report, which includes Cobb Neck, Nanjemoy, and the Zacchaeus Heritage Area.
Motion's been made. Does everybody understand the motion that's been made to include all 3 areas? Can you wait till we get a second, Joan, and we can discuss it? Do I hear a second? Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion, Joan.
Just the question to Charles of whether 1, 2, and 3, I thought I was hearing you say 1, focusing on the Cobb Neck area as opposed to 2 and 3. And I was going to ask what your preference is. How do you see this? I know you said the Agricultural Land Preservation Board said 1, which is said 2, the Cobb Neck area. We would be voting on 1, 2, and 3, which would include Nanjemoy. And I just wanted your opinion as to whether following what the Agricultural Land Preservation Area is recommending would be more feasible.
You know, there's certainly merits to both arguments, whether to stay focused, very focused, as the Land Preservation Board has recommended, or to look at other areas. As an outsider coming in that may not be familiar with the county, you can see that we have a rural legacy area that's been in place since 1998, and not knowing all the history and background, one might wonder, well, why isn't that area within your priority preservation area if it's something you designated years ago as a priority for focus and preservation, essentially. So someone not having the background, that wouldn't make sense to them, and I can understand why you might want to include it for those reasons. The western side, certainly the focus there is forestry and the natural resources associated with forestry and the timber industry. Is that important enough to include? Certainly it could be, but then you have to look at all of that and say, well, are you creating an area too big to really have a priority? And there may be other ways of getting at that. If the end result is a larger area that's comprised of this area 1, 2, and 3, maybe the county can work within its programs to still establish a priority ranking within those, so that when you open up a comprehensive plan and look and say, well, the county's designated these 3 large areas as priority preservation, well, that can see why they would do that, but underlying that is a mechanism that gives priority funding for the land preservation, ag land preservation programs to maybe Cobb Neck, or the more forestry-related preservation programs, more of a priority to the Nanjemoy side or rural legacy area. So there are ways of dealing with that potentially, even though you've designated a larger area. So, the long-winded answer to your question is there's merits to both sides, and there's.
I was trying to say that the comp plan that we're working on now is 2012, and we're 2016. And so my concern is that if we don't include it now, it could be 15 years from now that we look at the next comp plan. And I don't think that there is a harm in including it now. If we can get to it, it happens. If we don't, it can be prioritized with the funding that's available.
I have a comment to that, because the fact that we as a planning commission are circumventing the Ag Preservation Board, again, I'm going back to what I said earlier. They are an advisory body. They have not, yes, they've discussed this, but I have a real concern that they're not involved in this, because they should bring it to us. They brought to us priority preservation as number one. Yes, we have a right to look at it, but I think, in all honesty, if and this is my opinion now, if we do this, then what's the function of the Ag Preservation Board?
Mr. Chair, the one thing I would like to point out also, I mean, I don't disagree, and I totally understand why the Ag Board would target Cobb Neck, because that is where most of the farms are. But protecting forests is also a priority for the county. And I'd like to point out that this priority preservation area, all three areas, were a part of the merge scenario. And public participation is also something that we have to take into consideration when we are working on the comp plan. And the public, there have been many, many people who come and said that we should go back to the merge scenario or incorporate things for them in the merge scenario. So I don't disagree that the Ag Board's input is vital, but we're not saying don't include what they recommended. And also I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that one of the reasons, I mean, Mr. Graham gave us a study on the PPA a while back, and he changed he was saying in this report that it looks like we could achieve it with all three areas. I think originally he didn't think we would be able to achieve all three areas in the report, but he did say that this is an achievable goal. But I think while it's very important to include the Ag Board, we also have to include the citizens' comment.
I understand what you're
I have
saying.
a question. So I guess my colleagues are saying that you do not want to include Nanjemoy. You want to concentrate on Cobb Neck. Is that what you're saying? So what if we don't include Nanjemoy, then what impact would those lands have on the Indian Head Naval Base and the Mattawoman?
The impacts of not including that area?
Right.
About the only thing that I can say there is if you look at the history of preservation activity on the western side of the county, there's a large focus there by the state through the Department of Natural Resources because of not only the Mattawoman, but the fact that you have such expansive forest land there. So the state has focused a lot of their preservation money in Charles County on the western side for those reasons. So they've been a big player there, and I don't see that changing for those reasons. You also have the Nature Conservancy, which has a large focus area there for large blocks of contiguous forest land. So if you look at the county as a whole, the private organizations and the state itself are huge players in preservation on that side of the county as opposed to some other areas. I think that would continue. So that's a great benefit to us that that's occurring because it's not costing the county preservation dollars, and we can focus on other areas while they're taking care of the preservation issue there. It's great, has been great, and continues to be great for the county. I think that will continue because the resource is so valuable there.
Mm-hmm. But we don't know that for sure. You're saying you're thinking.
You can never, it's always subject to budgets, but history has shown that it's always been a focus and priority for the state.
And that would help us with the numbers to reach that goal, right? I mean, if someone else is buying that land, it's still counting towards the final number of acres.
Sure.
So it's like a no-brainer there.
Yeah.
Well, it's.
I mean, we want to guarantee our ability to get recertified. It just seems silly for us to lose money.
Well, and I can't say you would be losing it. You wouldn't. If you adopt a larger area, your numbers are larger and you have a bigger goal to meet and more time. So even though you're enjoying preservation activity that someone else is doing for you, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to reach your goal quicker. It's because you have such a larger area, but it's a nice thing to have. We've enjoyed that and continue to enjoy that.
1, Cobb Neck. 2, the Sakai Rural Legacy Area. 3, the Nanjemoy area as part of the priority preservation area. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
I'm going to ask that as we vote, that we, Madam Recording Secretary will call the roll. Once we go through ayes and noes and all that, Robert's Rules of Order. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed.
Okay, Robin Barnes? Rosemond Day?
4.
William Lagoon?
Opposed?
Joan Jones?
Opposed.
Buddy Bowen?
Opposed.
Nancy Schertler?
In favor.
And Angela Sherrod?
I'm for.
Thank you, members, and thank you, Recording Secretary.